Hey there, Wargamers, and welcome back to another Wargames Delivered video. In this video, we're going to paint a dead dandy from Malifaux. Let's get started. So for this week and this video, I figured we would keep focusing on Malifaux as our featured game of the month. We'll move that into March as well. So starting off here, I have a couple of factions that we're going to be working through this week. In this video in particular, this is the Dead Dandy from the Resurrectionist faction of Malifaux. They're kind of like the undead faction of the game, and this was a good excuse to show off the Malignant Green speed paint, which I haven't really used too much on the channel, so we'll go ahead and fill in all of the skin parts here of the model, or what would be skin, and he's got lots of detail here on these models. This guy in particular has lots of open patches of torn clothes on him that you can fit this color into, so there's a lot of detail we can work into, like the hands. As you can see, there's some on the shoulder, and we'll also go ahead and cover the face with this a little bit later on as well. Be sure to get every single area, as we always do with the speed paint, and just try to use one thin, even layer of the speed paint like we would normally do with the typical acrylics. We are going to be using speed paints pretty much entirely in this video, so we will pull out some white acrylic to clean up all the areas that we're hitting with the Malignant Green that we don't want to be covered with it. So as soon as the speed paint dries, feel free to switch over to some matte white of the normal acrylic line, and we'll go ahead and cover up any of those mistakes that we made. I know it was a little bit messy here with the torn pieces of clothing on his pants, and some areas on the model like his face and some parts of his arm as well. So we'll go ahead and clean those up before we move on to our next speed paint step, and then we will switch over there. And I won't really show that step again, so just keep that in mind. If you ever get any speed paint on certain areas that you don't want, just have a little bit of matte white on your palette, or a mix of matte white and gray. These guys I pretty much spray painted white before starting them. And we're going to switch over here into the Holy White speed paint. This is just going to add a little bit of detail in certain areas, mainly just the sleeves and his undershirt down here as well. This is a very subtle speed paint. It doesn't add too much, but it adds a very nice amount of light detail as well. Now, most speed paints you'll want to use very thin down on models like this, but with the Holy White you can use that a little bit thicker. It really sets in the recesses very well and lends itself to being used like this. So certain speed paints work a little bit different. When you get all of them, it kind of takes a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how each one of them works and what their consistency is like. So each one has a little bit different consistency. I'm very excited with the Speed Paints 2.0 coming out soon to see how those work. And next up, we will move into painting the bulk of his suit here, once the Holy White is dry, of course. Switching over there, we will move into Gravelord Gray, and with this, we're going to cover the entirety of his vest and his pants here. So, you can use a little bit of a larger brush for this. We're just going to cover the top part of the vest here. We're going to leave his overcoat white for now, and we're going to cover that with a different color. But as you can see, the Gravelord Gray sets in very well as well. Just kind of takes a couple of brush strokes to get nice even coverage over the model. Just try to make sure you don't have any areas pooling on any flat surfaces or raised areas of the model. Make sure that you have some detail sinking into the recesses. And with areas like the pants, you'll want very consistent coverage across them. Two kind of areas of models like that can kind of dry differently if you paint them a little bit too slow. So you'll want to work kind of fast and make sure that your coverage is consistent. Just basically make sure that the area that you started with isn't dry by the time that you finish. And so we'll move over to Grim Black now to paint in the overcoat of the model, the hat, and the boots. And the same technique that we use with the Gravelord Gray, we'll just want to keep very consistent coverage and consistency across the model. This will help with nice even layers and making sure that certain areas don't dry differently than others with speed paints. That's a common issue that people have with speed paints, and really what you need is just consistent coverage and thin layers, and you'll get a very nice finish with these. And moving on, we'll go ahead and add a little bit of color and interest here to the model with blood red. Add a little bit of diverse color as well. And we're going to use this to cover up his tie. We're going to paint the entirety of his tie, and there's a stripe around his hat very close to the rim, and we'll go ahead and cover this as best we can on the hat as well. And with this color, just be very careful. This color is very vibrant and will stain on top of other speed paints, so be very careful with it. This is why I left the hat blank for now, so we'll go ahead and fill this in before we do the black of the hat, so we can clean it up with our white later. And this is a tricky area to hit, so feel free to give yourself a little bit of space to be kind of messy here. Go ahead and clean it up with the matte white from the acrylic line. Then we'll switch over to Grim Black again, and we'll actually do 2 coats of the Grim Black on the hat, just to give it a little variation from the cloak on the back. So with this, we'll want to give it about 30 minutes to dry, and then we'll go ahead and give it a second coat. And as you can see, it's a little bit darker and gives a little bit of a different contrast than the cloak does. And now we'll move into a few more finer details on the model. So we'll go ahead and pull out our gunmetal here and paint just the rim of the monocle on the model here, being very careful around everything else that we've already painted. It's going to be a very tricky step here, so just take your time, try to use as best brush control as you can, and go slowly around the monocle, and then we'll move into some bright gold for the rim of his cane here. We also used dark wood to cover up the cane. I don't think we had any footage of that, but simple 1 coat of dark wood to get the cane that nice dark brown color. And so with the metallics there, we'll also hit the belt buckle, and I will move into the gem that's on the end of his cane here. So we'll go ahead and take a nice thick layer of runic gray, get a nice kind of gray blue on this area. Go ahead and let that dry, and we'll switch over to our metallics once again. And for this, we'll switch over to fairy dust and do a little bit of stippling on the area that we covered with the runic gray, the little gem that's on his cane here. And we'll go ahead and call that good there, adding a little bit of interest and detail and shininess to his cane. And lastly, we will go into some blending with some washes here, just to really marry some of the colors together and add some depth to some of the shadows. So we'll go ahead and use dark tone on all of the metallic areas, and certain areas like the belt and around the shoes, possibly anywhere where you see fit, really. The speed paints do a lot of the legwork for establishing shadows, but sometimes it's nice to go in with some shade and just touch those up, add a little bit more, and refine some of those details. So we have dark tone here for our metallic details. We have the flesh wash for certain areas like our gold metallics. And then we also have the military shader because I wanted a little bit more depth out of the flesh tone, and this is what we're going to get with that. And so, as always, guys, thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more videos. We always have giveaways attached to our videos. If you check out the top link of the description, there should be a Gleam link there for every single video that we release until the giveaways end. So every giveaway that we have ends the following Sunday. So for this, it will be the 4th of March for every video this week. So please stay tuned. Feel free to enter in the giveaway. There's multiple ways to enter, so keep that in mind, and be sure to take advantage of all those ways to enter. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, and happy wargaming.